First of all, I want to tell you I'm honored to be here with you today amongst all you champions of equity, all of these bright school leaders. Thank you so much for having me. But more importantly, I'm here today to speak to these distinguished bright spot school administrators. I want to introduce each one of them, and then we'll ask them to tell us a little bit about themselves. Is that all right? Awesome. I know you're chewing, but is that all right? Very good. First off, VISTA del Valle, Miss Janie Nuanes. Please give her a round of applause. COWAN Avenue Elementary, one of our LAUSD schools as well, Richard del Sylveira. A middle school at MUSCATEL, Miss Ginny Ford. And at Wilder, none other, Germaine Jackson. Roy Ball Learning Center, Ms. Blanca Cruz. And at Gar High School, Dr. Christina Wise. So what I'll do is I'll take the natural progression down the panel, if I could. So starting off first, take about a minute or so and tell us a little bit about yourself and about your wonderful school.
Okay. So my background, 7 years working at Whittier City School District, has been in the area of English language learners. So that developed that passion that I have for working with students that needed those extra supports and challenges. So going into a school in Claremont 3 years ago, I really felt compelled, and this was the place that I needed to be to help support that diversity, those students that needed that extra support. In 2018, we were identified as a California Distinguished School. Also last year, we received the first award for the top schools in Los Angeles County because of closing the achievement gap for our English language learners and socioeconomically disadvantaged students, as well as really refining and honing in on our social emotional learning aspect, also, as well as our PBIS system. We were awarded the Gold School and are currently working on a Platinum status.
Wow, very good. Outstanding.
So that's impressive. Again, my name is Richard Dosselver. I'm the principal at COWAN Avenue Elementary School. It's located in Westchester. I've been a principal approximately 16 years. The reason why I chose COWAN is because it's predominantly, the school's located in Westchester, but it's predominantly African American. So we're about 90% African American, over 67% free and reduced lunch and poverty. And I thought we could make a very strong difference by working to eliminate that achievement gap. I'm very happy to say at this point, our scores, our level of achievement is comparable with the schools in the area that are not Title I, that do not have the same level of diversity. And we're still striving for more. That's what I'll say at this point. We have a very strong teaching staff, and I can only say that the level of consistency is key so far to our success, and we'll talk about that more.
Very impressive. Thank you. Ms. Ford?
Good afternoon. I'm Ginny Ford, and I am currently the assistant principal at MUSCATEL Middle School in Rosemead School District. We are a 7-8 school, which is somewhat unusual, I guess, in our area because a lot of the surrounding schools are 6-8. We have about 555 kids that are, we're kind of almost evenly split between Hispanic and Asian and then a few other ethnicities mixed in. We are considered a high-performing school because we are a Title I school district. We have over 80% free and reduced lunch. We have a really high attendance rate, which we're very pleased with because that means our kids love coming to school, and that's something that we capitalize on. A little bit about me. Before I became principal, I spent 20 years as a school psychologist. 18 of those years were in the Rosemead School District, And about 5 years ago, my superintendent approached me when we had an opening for an AP position and asked me to become AP. And I think I sat on that for like 2 weeks going, I don't know if I can do this. But I have to say I'm very happy that I took the job, and it has really been a learning experience for me, and I found that I can impact kids almost way more being an AP, because as a school psychologist, you're limited to the kids that you get to come in contact with. So I really enjoy that part of my job. It's all about the kids, and that's the part that I love the most.
Thank you. Let's give Ms. Ford a hand. Ms. Jackson.
Good afternoon. My name is Germaine Jackson, no relation to the Fabulous Five. People ask me that all the time, even as an adult. And I am very proud to be the principal of Wilders Preparatory Academy Charter School. We are located in Inglewood, and we are a K-8 school with a total of 610 students. Our demographics is predominantly African American and Latino, and we're excited that we continue, as our community continues to change, that our school continues to reflect that as we have a growing Asian population as well. We're super excited that our school continues to grow, and though many of our accolades are solely academic, we also pride ourselves in making sure that our students are getting opportunities to be out in the community. We pride ourselves in having strong partnerships in the community. We believe our students need to see the best of themselves, not only at school, but also in the communities that they reflect, and also that we have opportunities to get outside of the classroom. So we have a group of strong teachers that are both new, experienced, and we have a group of teachers that have been there more than 10 years, so they know the legacy of the school. But we also are really excited that we continue to grow with being innovative, training our teachers, having the opportunity to have experiences outside of the classroom, because we know our students and this new generation of learners need to see more than just inside the classroom. We're excited that we too have, I feel like I'm on a panel of distinguished guests, that we too have been recognized for being a California Distinguished School. We have been noted as the top California charter school. We also were recognized this year by the USC and Innovative School Study to be one of the top elementary and middle schools to serve underrepresented students. So we're very proud of that accomplishment. Though many schools, I think, are working on the math and English component, we're very proud that our students in elementary and middle school, more than 50%, are exceeding 3 and 4 on the state standardized tests. And more importantly, feel good about being a student and feel accomplished and feel proud about the accomplishments that they're making. So I'm very proud to be here to represent Wilders and the legacy that we have in our community.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Ms. Cruz.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Blanca Cruz. I'm the proud principal of an LA Unified School District high school, Roybal Learning Center, located right in the heart of downtown Los Angeles. Just so you all know, I just finished my 6th week as principal. This is my first year. So I will not take the credit for the work that has happened at Roybal without paying due respect to our former leader, Dr. Jared Dupree, who was the principal at Roybal, is now the proud AI for Local District Central. And I say that because I was just sharing with the former colleague where I started my teaching career at. The schools in Local District Central are changing, and it's because of what we did at Roybal that I see that happening. The focus that took place, the shift that took place 2 years ago was towards instruction, was really looking at what was happening at Roybal, why were we seeing the 5% reclassification rate, the 15% math proficiency rate, the 42% English proficiency rate in 2 years as a collective. And it was not just our admin team, it was also our teachers and staff, those that were on board, began to challenge, right, our own views, our own practices, looking at what we could do differently, and in a 2-year period have increased our proficiency rates by over 20 points for both English and mathematics. That work really took a lot, aside from just hours, it really took challenging challenging the practices in place that really oppress our students. And it's something that we were discussing earlier in our last workshop. And I say this to our students that are here. I was that student that also, at the age of 15 had my daughter. And I know exactly what you go through in a classroom when people look at you and think you're not going to achieve. So as leaders, we had the moral obligation, the responsibility to go in there and transform those classrooms. We did have teachers that got off the bus, and that was fine. As we would say in our A-team meetings, our admin meetings, good luck to you, right? Because here at Roybal, that's not going to happen. We won't allow it. We will live in our classrooms. And so we have lived in our classrooms day in and day out, providing feedback, aligning that feedback to PD, aligning our resources, our investments into what we're doing with our teachers, providing that support that some might need a little bit more than others, and challenging what we had in place. So as a result, Roybal has grown not only in the this past Friday, our norm day, we were 105 over what we were expected to get. And I say that proudly because our communities deserve those schools. Our communities, our parents, our students deserve that, to have that same access to that success. And so my job as a leader has been, with the support of our team, our A team, and now our new current A team, we have a new admin team, is to continue to push in that direction, is to challenge those systems, change them, and begin to provide our students the schools that they deserve. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Ms. Cruz. Dr. Dupree would be proud. Dr. Wise.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I want to first thank AXA for this opportunity to share our stories. I'm standing here with a lot of distinguished guests, but my story is kind of simple. I'm a girl from Alabama, Montgomery, Alabama. I had a grandmother named Sarah Bibb that decided that for her children, her granddaughters, that there were only two opportunities in Montgomery, Alabama at that time. They were either going to be someone's housewife or someone's housemaid. She decided that we owned a store in the community, and she decided that every dollar that was going to be made at the store would be to send her granddaughters to college. My mother is one of those first. My cousin Vivian was the first to graduate from Alabama State University. So does equity mean something to me? Absolutely. I've been a principal now for 14 years in ABC Unified School District. I think that thought about vision and about equity for schools, I've run some of the most diverse schools in California. Tetzlaff Middle School, or we evolved it to Tetzlaff Accelerated Learning Academy, became a school that was the one that no one wanted to the one that is the #1 schools to watch in ABC Unified School District, and it is the most diverse. I became the proud principal here at Gar High School. I have to tell you, no one loves children more than me. I have one of the most diverse populations and most languages spoken in California. So how do we, as a school district, honor and value equity if we don't live it, preach it, and sing it when we are there with schools? So my job is beyond just being the principal. It's really about creating an environment where employees love to work and students love to come. And in this time, I've been there for 3 years, and we've made some tremendous growth for our students. We compete with one of the #1 schools in the state of California, which is called Whitney High School. I'm not going to say anything about Whitney. I'm only going to talk about Gar. But to think that we compete with a school that is #1, and every day we tell our students that we're really the #1 school. Because what do? We focus on what kids want. I have 2,000 students, 18% African American, about 8% white, about 55% Latino. I have Filipinos, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Tagalog, Samoan. I have everybody at Gar High School. And our secret to the magic is saying, ask the kids. We have all of these surveys, capacity to look at Google Classroom and ask kids, what do you want to learn? So the biggest things that I've been able to do in 3 years is move the master schedule. You want to move a school? Move the master schedule. You ask kids, what do you want? So we built CTE programs, and they weren't the CTE programs that our kids wanted. So what did we do? We closed them. What did we do? We reopened new classes and new programs based on what students want. And so it has been my pleasure. I've been California Distinguished School. I've been a National Schools to Watch. I've been Principal of the Year for the state of California. I've been the National Association finalist for Principal of the Year. And why is that? I'm a little old girl from Alabama. But I believe in equity, and equity comes when we ask our kids and community what they want. Thank you.
Oh. Very impressive, each of these champions, great stories. It actually leads us into how we want to start our panel discussion today. The theme is bright spots. And another way of saying, what are your best practices? Because us as educators, we're lifelong learners, right? We're always looking for not what's new, but what's being done with fidelity and what creates change. And so these 6 schools have those examples, so we want to hear from you. What is your bright spot? If you could expand a little bit, and I want to start on the end and come back this way so we don't have to, we want to be equitable. How about that, Dr. Wise? Dr. Wise, can you tell us a little bit about a bright spot at Gar High School?
Well, I honestly, it's the secret. Happy adults make happy children. Treat your teachers well, teachers will make your kids do well. But how do we do that? How do we make adults happy? Our bright spot is really remembering that teachers are certified, credentialed college graduates, and so we treat them like professionals. We bring research-based strategies so that we can discuss what's going to be best for kids, all based on data. So I've been very fortunate. In ABC, we have the gift of autonomy. Our superintendent, which is Dr. Barry Sue, very much believes that we have the power to make the curriculum decisions for our schools. Starting at GAR, when I got there, I sent 10 administrators out to the schools, and I said, okay, everybody go out and tell me what you see. And I had 10 different ideas. And I think as an employee, how do I make my principal happy if we have no idea what she is looking for? So we started with the why. Why are we working and what are we doing? And why are we doing it and how should we be doing it? So we came up with a book by the name of Sean Kane. It's a really short book because my staff wasn't used to reading a lot. So we found a really short book and it had 5 fundamental 5 is the title of the book. I think you can do anything in a handful. So we kind of, whatever is simple, whatever is easy for us to create a common vocabulary is what we did. In year 2, with us today are our friends from West Ed. We called over to West Ed. And we talked a little bit about the vision that we wanted to see for our school. So we came up with an instructional vision for our school, and it is really based on writing. Well, why is writing important? Because we read a lot of history books, and there is no space for students to tell their perspective and have some real concrete conversations about it. Working with West Ed, we've been able to create that instructional vision. But thirdly, it was really about creating this vision for our students in their learning environment. And it was really about saying, here at Gar High School, this is going to be a place where kids take pride and have a place where they belong. So how do we do that? We give them what they want. So if they wanted a club, they said, we don't have BSU. Okay, we'll have a BSU. We want a culinary club. Okay, we'll have a culinary club. Oh, guess what else, Ms. Wise? You want an AP club. We want an AP club? We have an AP club. Because when kids have places that they can invest their environment and time, they connect to those schools. And so we have over 30 clubs. We play against the San Gabriel League. We have an extensive athletic program of 2,000 kids. I have about 1,100 kids in a program because it's my counselor's job to find a place for those kids to connect. So 2,000 kids, that's a big school. Most of our middle schools are 600 and 700. To come here, we have to use our counseling team to make sure that kids have some place. So we ask them, what's your place of interest? But again, I really feel like there are 2 different things. Happy teachers make happy students. And so our Bright Start is really focusing on those educators and creating those programs that students want.
Thank you, Dr. Wise. Concierge service based on the student needs is what they're doing at Gar High School, but developing their teachers. Outstanding, outstanding. Ms. Cruz.
Very similarly in terms of looking at our teachers as well, but ours was a different approach. I want to say that our bright spot is that collective effort, that commitment to learning, that accountability to our team, not only to our team, but even to our teachers. Because the truth is that not everyone in that classroom really has that child's interest at heart. And that was something that we discovered as we went into our classrooms, began to look at what was happening. So what we did is, after working with our team, looking at our data, looking at what had been happening at Roybal the years prior to this 18 being established, we ended up implementing an instructional focus. And I invite you to visit our website. We do have a handbook with our focus, our program outline. but it was very simple. Looking at standards-based instruction, what did that look like inside our classroom? Looking at our EL support, how are we supporting our EL learners, especially in the community that we live because we have a high EL population. Looking at our depth of knowledge, right? Our rigorous instruction, is that taking place? And if not, then what do we need to do to make sure that that was taking place? Also, as a whole, just looking even at our humanity. We added the humanity piece our second year because in the end it is about the relationships. It is about making sure that our students feel like they're welcomed. It is, and not just welcome, but wanted and that they belong there. This is their school in the end. And lastly, it was about looking at communication and collaboration. How are we engaging our students? 2 years have gone by. We've seen those changes this year at the beginning of the school year. Talking to our former A team and our new team together, we discussed the need for us to implement also a foci for relevant learning. So over the last 2 years, we have implemented an instructional foci that is made up of the different focus elements that I just mentioned it, aligned it to our teaching and learning framework, and started going into classrooms and really looking at what was happening in terms of delivery of instruction, engaging in those difficult conversations, and then as a whole, also ensuring that our school had that very welcoming environment, positive relationships, and knowing that in the end, we needed to keep moving as a school, and people who were not ready, unfortunately, some of them did get off the bus, but that's okay because in the end, it was about that child who is in 12th grade, has 9 more months in school, didn't have time to wait for someone else to feel comfortable, to feel okay with implementing the practices that we needed to make sure were taking place in the classroom. So for us, our bright spot is that we were not afraid to come in to collectivize these efforts to implement that high expectations of learning and to hold ourselves and our team accountable to ensure that that was taking place.
Wow, thank you. So I'm starting to hear a theme, a common theme, student-centered, right? Teacher efficacy, right? We're going to make decisions based on the data. Thank you so much. Ms. Jackson.
Well, I think that I've heard a couple of things that I want to echo, and the number one thing is relationship building. We spend a lot of time preparing and continuing to train our teachers, and I think one of the shifts that we decided over the past couple of years is to continue to focus on the curriculum because that's a key component that teachers need to learn. But the relationship part is the key that we can't miss. Our relationships with their families are the things that we have to work on. How do we get everyone to the table? When we have a conversation about equity, how do you get parents to have that conversation? How do you get them to the school? How do you get them to feel welcomed? How do you meet them where they are, where there's no critique or no criticism, but helping them help their child? So we focused a lot on the parent engagement and student engagement piece, training our teachers, teaching them how to have those tough conversations, practicing, modeling. I do a lot of work with many of our newer teachers to be in those tough conversations with families, to help families be welcome. As administrators, we have to get out of our offices, we have to get into classrooms, we have to get onto the yard, we have to talk to students, they have to see that we're real people, we have to build our relationship and our relations with our students. They are our number one focus. I say to my teachers all the time, we are in a service business, and you have to continue to check in with the people that you're providing a service to. How are we doing? It doesn't matter if you're teaching, if students aren't learning, if your families aren't happy, if we're not questioning how well of a job are we doing. We have a different model than most at schools. We have an intervention team, and most schools, when we talk about intervention, is solely focusing on the lower performing students. We have an intervention team for each grade level that supports all students. So not only students that are at the bottom that may need additional support, but also the students that are at the top. So often when we talk about equity, the focus is solely on students that need additional support, but we're losing a lot of students because they're bored. We're losing a lot of students because they already got it, and how are we pushing them? How are we connecting them to more opportunities? So our intervention team supports the lead teachers and supports their grade level to create opportunities, sometimes where it's pull out or push in with the classroom teacher to support students, but also those students at the higher end, they may be ready to do something else. In our math classes, often in the 8th grade, we may have students that are prepared to do math beyond the 8th grade curriculum that we are currently providing. So along with direct instruction, we have a lot of online resources that we utilize to help support our students. Along with that, and parent engagement is an ongoing piece that we are working on, figuring out culturally how do we get people to come. I think often as schools, we still are really programmed either from our own education or from our own programs to kind of have meetings like this where chairs are set up in spaces that families feel very intimidated. So looking at what are the ways that we can culturally align with our families. Many of our families like to potluck and like to do things that feel more familial. So meeting people where they don't feel intimidated and where they feel like information is a welcome thing to share and not a if you are the right family you can get it or if you're liked by the school you can get it. But that is information that is welcomed and inviting for everyone. Along with that, we also have a restorative justice model that permeates in everything that we do. Like many schools, we have looked at, not only getting students to school and for them to be successful, but also how we look at our discipline model. I think for teachers, often they're very centered on data and trying to make sure everybody is there and present, but we have students that have real emotional issues. Some that they bring to school and sometimes that are mirrored at school. And so we have to really look at how are we dealing with our students? How are we dealing with them not solely through a punitive model, but through a restorative model where they're part of a community. So working on community building activities that are organic and not just, themes of the month that we all probably have, but things that really allow students to think about their relationship with other people, but their partnership within a school community. And so we've been doing a lot of work around the community building piece and how we can use some practices that are kind of anti-school, asking the tough questions, why did you do that? Being willing to hear from students. Students having a voice is really important. And so some of those restorative practices have been rewarding, and again, the engagement piece for students to want to do well in school, to know that they can't be the distraction in the classroom, because many of them are using that behavior to distract our teachers from continuing to teach. So if now we can interrupt that cycle, now we can get students to be aligned with school expectations, but also preparing them for a real world that has expectations as well. The last thing that I'll say as it relates to our curriculum is we take pride. People will often say, well, what's the secret sauce? And obviously we're all public schools, and so we are aligned with the California curriculum, but we also know that California is not the top-rated educational system in the United States. And so we also look to see, well, what are other top-performing schools doing and using? And so some of our secret sauce is that we have the state-aligned curriculum, but we're also using other outside curriculum to support best practices for our school. And our bar isn't to be the best school in California. Our bar is to offer the best education publicly in the United States. And so we continue to look at other methodology as well as curriculum that'll better support our students. When you have a rigorous academic environment, you want to make sure you continue to push students from each grade level, from K all the way to 8 in our case, and also continue to look at the model for high school and college, which is preparing students for an environment that's not just multiple choice tests, but being able to have conversations with people, being able to write across the curriculum, and also being able to critically think. Well, I was, before I got up here, I was actually speaking with some at the table. Simple things. I think, education can be a really isolating world. Teachers take pride in being in their classrooms, and administrators take pride in being in their offices. Simple things like getting out and having lunch with your students. I was just joking with someone that this month is jump rope and hula hoop challenges, and the kids are super excited that their principal knows how to jump rope. And now I'm all competitive. I'm like, we're gonna have double dutch competition, all kind of things. But they need to know that you're real people. And sometimes the only way that you can have those experiences is to be with them. I take pride in being in the classroom, asking students, what are you learning today? Having them talk with me about what are you learning? Do you get it? Common Core is not only new for students. I sit in math class a lot too, and I'm like, shh, you better be quiet. We got to learn this, because I don't know if I can help you either. But I think the relationship building is intentional. You got to get out, and I take pride. I have 605 students, and that's not a large environment for many of your comprehensive schools, but I take pride in knowing all of their names. We train our teachers that we don't want them to abbreviate their names, and they have to learn all of our students' names and pronounce them correctly. Your name connects you to who you are. It connects you to your family. It connects you to your culture. And it's very important for me that I know my students by their name.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Ms. Ford, at Muscatel, what are you doing? What's a bright spot there? I know you have a lot of them. Can you share one with us?
We do. I'd have to say one of our biggest bright spots is resiliency. We have an interesting story to tell. Last year in the middle of the school year, we did lose our principal. So we had to finish out our school year without a principal. And that's when I found that that's where you really rely on relationships. It was amazing to see our school still function and still be happy and still make progress and be impressed with, some of our test scores that we've got. I cannot take any credit for that. That's all the teachers and the students and the hard work that they put into the classroom. One of our main focuses this year, we do have a new principal. Her name is Josie Wilson. She's sitting out here in the audience. And she's brought a tremendous amount of information to us. And I've learned a lot just in the few weeks that she's been here. And one of the focuses that we have this year is building intentional relationships with our student. That's what got us through last year, teachers stepping up to fill spots that needed to be taken care of, and also just the students even pitching in. So we felt that that was something that was really important, and that can build a school. If a student doesn't feel safe at school and doesn't have a connection with someone or an adult at school, they're not going to learn. I mean, studies have shown that if a student can connect with a teacher, they're more inclined to be willing to try their best, work hard, behave better in the classroom, or when they do misbehave, if you've got that relationship with them, you can take a step outside and say, hey, what's going on? And be able to talk with them. I feel like everything that we do with kids is a teachable moment, from academics to behavior to social emotional. And something that we really need to take a look at, and maybe this is just my psychology background, is the overall child. I think sometimes we forget that we teach children, not just a subject. And so I think building on those types of things with teachers and students and the relationships amongst each other is super important. Another thing that we have going at our school is a Leader in Me program. I don't know if anybody here has heard of it, but it's based on the 7 Habits by Franklin Covey. And so what this does is it provides an opportunity of leadership for our students as well as our teachers. Our main focus is getting our students to have as many leadership opportunities as possible at our school. So of course we have our ASB, and then we have actually created some classes in the morning as part of our advisement called the LEAD team. And what they do is create activities based on the 7 habits for our advisement teachers to work with our students a couple days a week. So we actually have curriculum that we follow. This year we got a new curriculum, which we're very excited about. It's geared more towards high school and career planning. Our kids in our district come up through the ranks with the Leader in Me. It starts actually in preschool. So we really benefit from it at the middle school. But then at the same time, our kids have had it so much that they kind of are like, oh no, it's Leader in Me again. So what we have to do is figure out how can we make it more applicable for them at this age. So what we focus on too at the middle school is the 8th habit, which is called Find Your Voice. And it's helping them develop who they are, who they want to be, and also helping others to be all that they can be. And we think that that's perfect for middle school because it's developing those skills that they're going to need for a lifetime. Out of the Leader in Me program, we also do a leadership day where the kids basically, they run the show. They introduce everybody, they plan it. We as adults, basically, we sit on the side and we just coach them and say, good job, and help them in the practicing and leading up to it, but they pretty much do the entire day themselves. And so that's a really big thing for our school to do. Also, we have, I forgot what I was going to say, sorry, parent involvement. Something that we're focusing on this year is doing some more, what we're thinking we're going to call parent universities, where we can do it in the evening, and we're going to create topics that parents would be interested in, so that they can come and in the evening and maybe gain some information on how to best work with their middle school children. The first one that we're going to do is talking about how does the middle school or teenager brain develop, and how can you work with your child at home to be successful at school as well as to listen and behave at home. So this year our main focus, I think, is going to be on academics, of course, and we are going to be revisiting our MTSS systems, both in the behavior as well as the academic and the social emotional. The first thing that we've done in our beginning of the year staff meetings is we've formed task force, and we've asked the teachers to sign up for each task force. So we have one for behavior, academic, and social emotional. Which ones did you want to be on? And so we let them choose. And so we're meeting in those teams to discuss, let's relook at our MTSS. What are our tier 1 interventions? What are tier 2? What are tier 3? What do we need to improve on? What do we need to hone in on? And let's use our data to help us guide us. I think sometimes as educators, we like to go with, well, just because we know we feel that way, because we know our kids. But sometimes we also need to look at the data and combine that with what we think as professionals, our best professional opinion is. So we're going to focus more on intention of improving in all of those areas, and hopefully move ourselves forward as a school.
Wow, that's powerful. Throw a hand in the air if you're here today because you were positively impacted by a one-to-one interaction with a teacher, right? Think about it. So that's very, very important. Thank you for that. Okay, Mr. Da Sylveira. Oh, thank you. How about you? What about the bright spot at Cowan?
Well, if I had to distill it down to a few points, what I'm most proud of are the relationships that I've formed with teachers. I've always said it's not about programs, it's about people. If all of you working in public education know that authority and power is really decentralized if you have a high, union school. So what I'm most proud of is that I've been able to, through vision, through articulation of mission, work with teachers to move the school forward. It hasn't always been easy, and I remember just years back when, just so you know, obviously the school that I'm privileged to serve at doesn't reflect what the neighborhood looks like, just put it simply. And I just remember, working with teachers, and the common refrain was, how are we going to get the neighborhood back? How are we going to get these, those kids to come back here so we can move achievement forward? And, that's discussions that many of you have had, I'm sure. It's nothing unique. But, as you constantly articulate and say, this is where we're going, this is what the goal is, and you hire teachers and you help other, team members find another place, and we're all team members. It's because I say that in humility. What I'm most proud of is that now we're at the point where I would put my child in any one of those classes, and that's how we measure ourselves. Actually, my children did attend my school, and the magnet coordinator's children do attend the school, and many teachers. So we, and imagine, would you eat food that if I said, this is great, and I said, but I won't eat it myself. But you, are more than welcome to have this great dish. You would be suspect. You would say, hey, why don't we eat this together? So, so I tell the teachers, that I'm proud of them. We're mutually accountable. And when we, hire, obviously, we don't, hire a team member out of, we don't hire as a group out of compliance. We do that because we're trying to maintain a school culture. We're trying to maintain a belief. And so one of the questions is, don't let the neighborhood fool you when you're in an interview. We're sure you looked at our school. How do you feel about teaching, these kids? Or do you have any experience with that, these kids, our kids, those kids, however you want to say it. But, what's your philosophy on, engagement of students, classroom management, things that are very basic but are so profound and that make all the difference in whether a grade level, a class, a school moves forward, and whether parents and students feel appreciated. The second thing, like I started off saying, it's not about programs, it's about people. However, programs are important. Since I've been there, I've tried to believe in the theory of constant change. We have 3 pathways on one school, and we're a small school, barely to 400 kids. But we have 3 separate, distinct pathways. We have a Spanish immersion program that's designed for children. It's not 50-50, it's 90-10. It's designed for children who only speak English, who are not going to get any target language support at home. We opened up a gifted magnet to meet the needs of those families, and we converted the main school into a STEM school. And those are accomplished. Those of you like just getting buy-in, having teachers be excited about the students they're teaching, teachers excited about the direction that the school is going, and setting clear, measurable goals, and everybody being able to talk about them, and everyone excited about progress, and everyone holding each other accountable sometimes if we stumble, if we don't make the progress that we need to make in a certain area. The third thing that I would be proud of is the focus on constant improvement. So phrase is, we inspect what we expect. You look to see how well you're doing in terms. So an example of those of you who are with Los Angeles Unified, and those there's something that's simple that everyone does. They call them the interim assessments, and at least policy-wise, we're only required to do 1 in each area per semester. But the teachers, is definitely not something that's top down. We say we want to administer as many as possible so we can see where they are, so we can communicate with parents, so we can target standards that perhaps a child needs more support in. And obviously I'm talking to you as an administrator, which is sort of structure, mechanisms in place. If you talk to a teacher, they might talk about all the programs, the different music programs, the different art programs, and other extracurriculars. However, I'm just most proud of the fact that we took a school that struggled in some of the main structures, and we worked together to vision together, execute some very basic fundamental strategies, and then the fact that we can hold each other accountable in a real way that's not threatening, that's not a got you sort of thing, but it is real and it is palpable, and it does help us motivate one another.
Thank you. Okay, last but not least, Ms. Nuanes.
I actually proposed this question to all of my staff because I wanted to see where they felt our bright spots were. And of course, I got a lot of programs and particular things that they were doing. PLCs was one of them, but in looking at all of their responses, it had to do with the high level of collaboration that we have at our school site. Now, mind you, this is not something that was done within the last 3 years that I've been there. This is something that has been done and introduced prior to that time with the 4s and the 4 essential questions that were being asked. But then looking deeper into it, and as I'm making my trips to the classrooms, what does collaboration truly look like at each of the grade levels? Is it something that we're holding each other accountable for? What are those expectations that we have? Are we using data to drive our instruction? What does that look like for each of our grade levels? And I'll be very honest with you. We have some veteran teachers in a specific grade level that are maybe not as highly collaborative as others would like. And that's just the truth of the matter. But how do you get those staff on board? And then also how within those teachers that are within that staff member or that grade level span, how do you get them to feel comfortable in working with their staff on looking at data? So we actually looked at the data in a different perspective. We said, okay, here is our data, but let's attach names to our students. We want to get to know what each individual student's needs are. And when we're looking at a specific RTI model, it's not necessarily RTI academic-wise, it's RTI behavioral-wise. All of the staff members know who might need some extra support in the classroom. So what kind of tier 1 interventions are we providing for those students out on the playground throughout the various points of the day? So every staff member knows how we can best support our students. So having that high level of collaboration and accountability within the school system has been a journey that we're continuing to improve on. But has been critical and essential for our school as well. And then also thinking about how we can best support our students. If you walk into my school and my classroom, we are very driven in the social emotional learning aspect. How do we let students know that we want them there? We have students that are coming in late to school, no matter what the reason is, and the first thing out of my secretary's mouth or my clerk's mouth is, we are so happy that you are here to learn today. It is not about, oh, what happened to you? Why are you late? It's about, we are so excited that you have come to learn today. So just having that mindset or that shift in thinking that we are here for you and you are ready to learn. Also, a specific area as well that really, really aligns to PBIS is something that we've employed within our school system. It's actually slowly spreading out to our other school sites in the district, is the nurtured heart approach. So I'm not sure if you're very familiar with that, because we at our site give scholar dollars for students following the expectations. But one essential piece to that in adding the nurtured heart approach is that we are showing what type of person they are, because they're following those expectations. So for example, if I'm telling a student, wow, you really did a great job turning in your homework, and then giving him a scholar dollar, it goes beyond that. Wow, it really shows that so perseverance, despite the fact that you had practice today, how responsible of a student you are today. So we're really building that self-worth that students, we're trying to develop that self-worth that students deserve. So walking onto my campus, every teacher high fives, welcomes the students at the door. I just want to share a little something with you. One of my 5-6 grade combo teachers kind of came in a little bit upset about a situation that had happened in her classroom that she was made aware of the day before. So she walked into school. Students noticed that she was not very happy about a situation. And when she sat down, somewhat explained, and still noticed that the kids felt super disappointed about the day. And she's like, what's going on? She says, you didn't greet us. So what she did is she walked around and handed a high five to all those kids. I'm so sorry. So she knew from that point forward, one, how important that relationship building is, but then also, two, don't deprive students of their ability to be recognized. Super important.
Thank you for that. High five your neighbor. A virtual high five at least. Okay, you guys have been so inspiring that we kind of lost track of time. 2 questions in the entire time, but I did want to toss this out. Rapid fire, think game show, okay? As a school leader, what systems need to be in place to surmount obstacles to equity? Remember I said rapid fire, right? We only have a couple minutes. Can you, any of you on the panel, if you could respond to that in a few words. As a school leader, what systems need to be in place to surmount obstacles to equity?
I think it's just being open to making sure that students feel that this is a safe place to be. Some of the challenges that I've been facing at my school site is the increase of homeless and doubled up students this year. So how are we reaching out to those families when we're thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the physiological and safety aspect of what these student needs are, and also the families. So how are we reaching out, providing resources, meeting them after school hours, giving them those extra steps that they are needing? But it's also relationship building with the families, creating community events. We have family fun night. We have game events for them so that they can be able to come out, because it's important for us at our school site to build that sense of community.
Okay, real quick, what's your greatest challenge to ensuring equity for all students? One last response. Greatest challenge to ensuring equity for all students. And I did hear many of you speak to the equity piece earlier.
I just think we have to look at the data. So there are 4 kind of ways that we can look at data. Number one, we look at data in terms of formative and summative. We all do that. But there are some perception data that deal with our buildings, that make our buildings better places and safer places for kids to learn. And unless we ask our communities and look at the data that's presented to us, in particularly for the California Parents Survey, there's so much wealth of knowledge that we need to do to connect with our students and our communities. The second portion of it is just looking at the demographic data. One of the things I think we miss is that we can say what our kids, whether or not our kids are free and reduced lunch, but we don't take enough time to look at the cultures of the communities. One of the things we did is we gave an actual diagram to our teachers. Where do our children live? Because someone said, oh, well, your school is ghetto. And I was like, well, this is Cerritos. I'm not really sure how that means. Not really sure what that means. But as we began to look at the perceptions that came with the zip codes in which we had at our school site, it became a new revelation about what time we opened school and what time we closed school. It became a new revelation about, in terms of what our students needed. So what was fun for them? Based on these community, so I think oftentimes we don't look at data deep enough, and I know principals are always so busy, but the thought is we work smarter and less hard if we're able to look at the data and answer the questions about the students in which we serve.
Thank you.
Can I add one real quick thing?
Real quick.
And I got this from one of our speakers this morning. I learned a lot from him. But one of the things he said, too, that we need to do is dismantle traditional and current ineffective practices and look at the root causes. Sometimes we do things just because, well, we've done that for a long time. Right. But is it really being effective in helping our kids? And that it's okay to be uncomfortable, that it's comfortable being uncomfortable to make those changes, because that's how you move yourself forward.
Best way to end our panel. Let's give these champions a hand. Vista Del Valle, Cowan Avenue, Muscatel Middle, Wilder Preparatory, Roy Ball Learning Center, and of course, Gar High School. One more time for our panelists. Thank you so much.